Your database can actually give you recommendations about how to improve its schema, but how does a platform like PlanetScale figure out if an index is missing, duplicated, or poorly designed? Let's break it down. Internally, PlanetScale has built a system called the Schema Advisor. The basic idea is pretty simple. When your production database changes, PlanetScale examines the schema and combines that information with data about how your database is actually being used. It can then recommend changes that could improve your database. First, PlanetScale needs to know when something changes. Whenever the schema of a production branch changes, PlanetScale emits an event to Kafka. That event triggers a background job which examines the new schema for potential recommendations. Some recommendations don't require any data at all. For example, PlanetScale can inspect the schema itself and detect duplicate indexes. If you have two indexes doing essentially the same job, that's something the Schema Advisor can flag just by looking at the schema. But what about an index that doesn't exist yet? That's more complicated. PlanetScale can use recent query performance and statistics to find queries that could potentially benefit from an index. It starts by identifying slow query candidates using its query insights data, and then it needs to understand the query itself. PlanetScale uses Vitess's query parser and semantic analysis tools to determine which columns in the query could potentially be indexed. So the system isn't just asking is this query slow, but rather it's asking why is it slow and could an index help. And here's where things get really interesting. When you create a multi-column index, column order matters. An index on A and B isn't necessarily equivalent to an index on B and A columns unless you use specific versions of specific database management systems. So PlanetScale needs to understand the database management system and the data itself to determine which order makes the most sense. To help make the decision, PlanetScale uses column cardinality, essentially how many distinct values a column contains. They patched their fork of MySQL with another variant of the analyze table query so they could extract this information without changing the database's normal statistics table. Combine the schema, query performance, query analysis, and column statistics, and you can produce something incredibly useful, a recommendation for how to improve the database schema.